Welcome to the Gaggle, where we talk politics in Arizona and beyond. This week, the State Child Welfare Agency does away with its citizen oversight panels. And what does the Republican tax plan mean for Arizonans? But first, Dan, we learned this week that Jeff Flake still uses checks.
Right. Senator Flake and my 84-year-old mother are the last two people using checks. But yeah, obviously, Jeff Flake, no fan of Roy Moore in the Alabama Senate race. He was an early critic of him. He kind of took an additional step this week. He sent $100 via check with the memo "Country over Party" to Doug Jones, the former U.S. attorney who is the Democratic candidate in the Alabama Senate race. He tweeted the photo on Twitter. It was a great made-for-Twitter story. Got lots of reaction on both sides. Some people were calling him a cheapskate. He was only given $100. What about all the money that in his campaign coffers he doesn't need anymore? Others said that like the gesture probably would actually generate more donations for more than it would help Jones, the $100. So obviously a kind of a symbolic thing, but apparently with Senator Flake, it was the Republican National Committee's decision to start going in and promoting and funding more again after Trump's endorsement that kind of was the trigger for this donation.
Of course, the objection here is that Moore has been accused by multiple women of making advances on them when they were not yet 18 years old.
Right. One was 14 years old at the time. He was a district attorney in his 30s at the time these allegations happened. And Flake's criticism even predates that. He was Moore had criticized Keith Ellison of Minnesota, who is the Muslim, and said that a Muslim shouldn't be able to serve in Congress, and Flake was criticizing him for that, saying it's an unconstitutional religious test, and Republicans shouldn't be supporting that sort of thing.
So, Mary Jo, the Department of Child Safety is doing away with its citizen oversight panels. What do they do?
These panels were created in response to a federal law, and their job is to bring citizen oversight to what's going on with child welfare practices and policies. Initially, they started off just like reviewing case files of kids who had died, in state custody or near fatalities, and then that expanded out largely at the department's urging in recent years to look at more thematic things instead of individual case studies. So in late November, the director of DCS sent a letter to all the panel members saying, thank you for your service. And when we get your next report, that's it. We're going to move this in-house. And we encourage you to, keep up with DCS. Maybe we can keep you on in some capacity as advisors.
Are there any doubts about there being true oversight, bringing it in-house?
Yeah, there's a lot of doubts. I mean, from the people that are on these panels, they've been frustrated in recent years anyway, because they say they're not getting too much response from the agency. It's hard to get their attention, to get a lot of cooperation. And they believe that bringing this, in-house, where these panels will still exist, but the agency, I guess, will appoint them, not an outside entity. They think that reduces the transparency.
So, Ron, the Republicans are trying to hammer out their tax plan. The Senate and House have both passed versions. What does it look like this would mean for Arizonans?
Probably as good a deal as you're going to find for any state, really. We're relatively low tax states. We're not going to be affected in some of the ways that make it appear that blue states, for example, California, New York, New Jersey, states that have relatively high state and local taxes. That's one thing that residents there would probably find they're not going to be too pleased with what they get out of the tax legislation. Arizona is a relatively lower tax state, and so we're relatively unaffected by it. And on that front in particular, we get whatever the benefits of the tax cuts might be without some of the drag of the ways that they're still trying to grab some revenue to keep the bill in at the $1.5 trillion level at this point. There are some other provisions, things like pass-through income tax, that is sort of a generic thing that happens across the country at relatively even levels. So Arizonans will be impacted by that, but so will everyone else. So for the most part, it looks like we'll come out of it good because of the way that we tax locally here, and the rest of it looks like it will be pretty straightforward for corporations and individuals.
To wrap up, Mary Jo, what are you watching for this week?
I'm working on a story about the Department of Child Safety's somewhat new approach. It's been in effect for a few months, where they're trying to reduce the number of times where they feel they've got to remove a kid from home and work more with the family to try to keep things together.
Dan?
Jeff Flake has a group on Capitol Hill working on DACA. The group is growing, I'm told, and they may have something by the end of the week, they hope.
It was a gang of 6 to start. How many are in the gang now?
Gang of 6 plus X.
Oh, interesting. Ron?
I want to know if we have a tax deal and if we have a shutdown, so we'll see.
Well, thanks for watching The Gaggle. We'll be back next week.